One of the most common ways that we encounter anti-Semitism is in media. Characters like Shylock in The Merchant of Venice or Fagin in Oliver Twist have existed in literature for hundreds of years. TV, movies, newspapers, and periodicals all can contain anti-Semitic depictions and characters. And of course, today, social media is the biggest hotbed of anti-Semitism that our students are likely facing. Of course, not every mention of Jews in the media is anti-Semitic, nor is everything that is anti-Semitic necessarily mentioning Jews or Judaism directly. That's why it's so important that we teach our students to become savvy consumers of media overall and social media in particular. This issue is even more tricky when it comes to Israel and anti-Zionism because the issues are even more complex and nuanced, but we will address that further in a future video. We have compiled a series of tips to help our students become savvy consumers of media, which can apply to all forms of media. Tip number 1, start with the author. Look into who the author is from the statement that you're reading. Check their background and credentials. What kind of biases are they bringing to the table? You always need to understand who this person is and what they're representing. Are they speaking only for themselves, or do they represent a company or an organization? What's the reputation of both the author and the company they might be working for? Any history of anti-Semitic sentiment? You also need to understand if they are being spoken about directly or being quoted by a third party. If it's by a third party, what's the reputation of that third party and what do they represent? Do they agree with the author or not? Finally, you always need to try to find the original source. Was it being quoted correctly or was it taken out of context? Tip number 2, analyze the piece itself. Carefully read what is being said, but also what is not being said. We need to understand both the text and the subtext as well. What is the goal or purpose of this piece? Is it a form of art or entertainment? Is it meant to provoke an emotional response in us or to make us laugh? Is there any political agenda or any other context that we need to know about while we're reading this? Is it trying to persuade us to a particular point of view, or is it just trying to inflame passions? It's also important for us to know, what platform are we reading this on? Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, or a news site? What reputation does this platform have? Are there any known biases? It's also important to check if there are any links for more information. If there are, follow them through. Check up on the sources, check the history and background of what is being quoted, and make sure to check out all claims. Tip number 3, check in with how the piece is making you feel. What is your gut telling you? Sometimes that can tell us a lot about what's going on. But at the same time, we must also implement critical analysis. We cannot get to a point where we assume that anyone who agrees with our own preconceived knowledge is automatically an ally, and anybody who doesn't is automatically an anti-Semite. We need to understand that we too might be making impulsive decisions, and upon further investigation, we can sometimes learn that we've actually overreacted to something and it wasn't as bad as we maybe originally would have thought it was. Therefore, after that gut reaction, then verify your feelings. Check in with somebody who maybe knows a little bit more than you about the piece that you just read. Maybe they have more knowledge than you on the subject matter or the author or the platform. Try to see what they feel on this. Seek out people outside your own bubble, maybe somebody who disagrees with you politically. Do they also find this piece problematic? Where possible, try to open a meaningful dialogue with somebody else. The more that we can really engage with people in our communities, people we both agree with and disagree with, the more that we can really expand our own worldview and start to see things on a broader, more meaningful level and understand a lot more nuance than maybe we did before. And maybe we can provide that for them as well. And while we would recommend definitely exercising caution in commenting in the comment section or engaging in social media posts, maybe if you can find a way using the right context to engage in a meaningful open dialogue with a content creator, you can also lead to a place of expanded worldview on both sides.